Hello, my name's Richard Kent. I want to tell you that I know very little about demons, but just once I did actually encounter a demon, and I thought you might be interested to hear about it. I was actually working roughly in the year 2005, but I can't remember exactly which year it was, with a group of 30 of us doing missionary work in Jamaica. Amongst the 30 were some doctors and some dentists and some nurses and 10 evangelists. I was just one of the evangelists. But actually, of this 30, 29 were very serious Christians, but one lady, we'll call her Susan, that's not her real name, she was definitely not a Christian. In fact, she was very much into the occult. Back at home, she was involved in seances and tarot cards and all sorts of things like that. And she actually became a bit of a problem for this Christian evangelistic group because she was basically swore a lot, and also she was drunk a lot. Anyway, quite a lot of members of our family were there, and they eventually said to me, would I go and speak to Susan about becoming a Christian and tidying up her act so she wouldn't swear so much and not drink so much, because this was embarrassing. So one evening in Jamaica, I went and spoke to her, and we walked round and round the swimming pool for about an hour. And when she saw me coming, she said, Richard, I'm very happy to talk to you, but I don't want to hear anything about this Jesus stuff because I'm just not interested at all. So I walked around the swimming pool with her and I said, well, you don't really believe in God, do you? Absolutely not, Richard, and especially with this Jesus stuff. And I said, well, if God exists, is there anything he could do that would actually help you in your life? And she said, well, actually there is. If you notice, always I sleep on the ground floor. I always arrange a bedroom wherever I am on the ground floor, and I always make sure that the windows are shut and locked if possible. And I said, well, I didn't know that, but why is that of interest? She said, well, for the last 15 years, 3 times a week at night time, my whole body flies on the ceiling. And whatever it is that's causing this strange thing to happen then tries to throw me out the window, which is why the windows are always locked. And I was absolutely amazed. I said, really, that is absolutely weird. I've never heard of anything like that. And then she said, Susan said to me, that's not her real name, do you know what it is? I said, I think I might well know what it is. Can you tell me when it first happened? Well, she said, I was traveling with my first husband in India, and he took me out into the countryside, and there I met a holy man. And he actually got hold of a snake and cut open its insides while the snake was still alive, and poured the contents of the snake's tummy on my head and said some funny words which I don't understand. And that night I floated on the ceiling, and it's been happening ever since. And then she said, do you know what it is? I said, well, I think it might well be a demon. Oh, she said, well, do you really believe in demons? And I said, well, I understand this thing's trying to kill you by throwing you out of the window. She said, absolutely. And I said, well, I think it is a demon. She said, well, if it is a demon, what can we do about it? And I said, well, in the Bible, Jesus actually casts out demons in the New Testament all the time. So why don't we ask Jesus to cast out this demon? She said, well, let's go for it. Well, to cut a long story short, she said a very simple salvation prayer. She then asked Jesus Christ to cast out this demon. She apologized. She said, I didn't know what I was doing wrong when I went to see that Indian holy man out in the countryside. I apologized for that. And she forgave all the people who had ever done bad things to her. And she also asked the Holy Spirit to come and live in her, and she also asked to receive the baptism of the Holy Spirit. Well, to cut a long story short, she finished saying that prayer, and she said that was all very simple, and she went to bed, and she came and knocked on my door at 5 o'clock in the morning. She said, Richard, I didn't float on the ceiling last night. I'm really, really excited. So she rounded up all her family, and there were about 4 of them there, and they were all baptized in a swimming pool at 6 o'clock. Anyway, I stayed in touch with her. She lives in West London, and my wife and I go up there hadn't recently, but we did go up there on occasions to actually talk to all her friends who are also involved in seances and what have you. None of them were interested because they're involved in the wrong track. But she was delivered from a demon. I thought you might be interested, and God bless you.